Good afternoon. I'm Caitlin Matson-Levy, and this is the Classical Cafe. I'm joined in the green room today by David Simmons Wood, who is the director of early music at K-State University, professor of music, and I'm excited to talk about early music with you. It's not something that we play a lot of here on Radio Kansas. It has its time, it has its place. We kind of sprinkle it in every now and again, but it certainly is incredible music. So tell us, lend us your expertise, David. How did you first get into early music?
I got into early music like several of my colleagues through the folk music world. So I started playing Irish traditional music and singing Irish traditional music when I was in grade school, and sort of came in through that direction. I was involved in the early music ensemble here at K-State when I was an undergraduate, and then in my graduate programs at North Texas and Indiana University, I specialized in early music because of some experiences that I'd had here as an undergrad as part of the early music ensembles.
People have a misconception, I think, about Renaissance music, medieval Renaissance, even Baroque music. They're gonna think, man, that's boring. But it actually, if you truly listen to it, if you're truly exposed to it, it's some of the most exciting music ever written.
I think the thing is that it's the music through even the middle of the 18th century or the end of the 18th century was written with a different frame of mind. Everything from the early 19th century and beyond has this romantic ideal put toward it. Everything before that, or most of everything before that, had a much more rhetorical aspect to it. So there was much more about communication and a back and forth between the performer and the composer, and the audiences were expected to listen in a different way. And specifically, when you talk about Renaissance and before, we've even got a different idea of the way that we think about what's harmony and what's melody and all these things. So it can be a new experience. It would be like jumping into the music of a culture that you were unfamiliar with in our present day.
And there is both secular and sacred texts. And some of the secular texts would just make anybody blush. Here we're talking, we're blushing listening to, Cardi B and people are clutching their pearls. But to be quite honest, if you knew what these people were singing about half the time, you would be blushing.
That's true, and they're composers like well-known British or English composers of the Baroque period, like Purcell. Purcell wrote all sorts of very risque things. Wrote a lot of these catches and these little rounds that were meant for people to perform as entertainment at their house, and oftentimes they were sort of in code.
Mm.
You would sing them, and as the round came about and voices were overlapped, a message, sometimes risque message, would appear from the music. But it's definitely not as prim and proper as people would always assume.
Don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a song by its melody. So tell us about your early music ensembles at K-State. It's actually pretty impressive. I was thinking about other universities in the state of Kansas, and the focus they have on early music. Do you know off the top of your head, are you one of the only colleges, universities in the state that has such a strong early music program?
Well, KU, University of Kansas, has a collegium, has an instrumental ensemble collegium, and they have a vocal ensemble that Paul Laird, Professor Paul Laird, Dr. Paul Laird is in charge of there. But in terms of specific ensembles, I don't know of very many others within the state that I've noticed. And the ensembles here we've had for the longest time, since the 70s, the Collegium Musicum, which just means a group of musicians. But that was a hot title for those kinds of ensembles starting in the 70s or so. And we had that, and I was part of the Collegium when I was an undergrad in the mid to late 90s. And then when I came back, I took over that ensemble. But then since then, we've created a recorder consort, and we've created an auditioned ensemble, the Madrigal and Motet Ensemble, which is an auditioned vocal ensemble. And so we try to have sort of many different ways to access this music and performing.
And you like to perform on period instruments if you can. And I was reading that you
Mhm.
actually have a period instrument lending library.
We have a very nice collection here, and a lot of that is due in part to predecessors of mine who thought it was very important that we have instruments. And so we have wonderful collections of violas da gamba. We have many recorders, both Renaissance recorders and Baroque style recorders. We have lots of period instruments that we have acquired over the years, and not all of them get used with great regularity, but it's wonderful when we do need to use them, we can. So we'll have our in our upcoming concert, we're bringing out one of our nicer harpsichords, and there'll be a harpsichord in that concert and things like that.
We'll talk more about that concert. We're going to get details about when it is and how we can attend. Let's very quickly tell us what we're about to hear. This Monteverdi. This is a selection from your upcoming concert.
Yeah, so this is a piece I've loved and wanted to do for a long time, and it is a duet for two tenors, and it's called Zeffiro Torna, and it has all of this imagery of sort of pastoral countryside and lovely things having to do with the flowers and the winds, and then at the end it turns and the singers say, "But I am abandoned in love, and even though everything is beautiful around me, I will just weep."
Yeah, I think we can all relate. Well, we have a recording with a mezzo-soprano and a soprano. Instead of two tenors, it's Pamela Murray and Pamela Delal. Claudio Monteverdi for you, and that piece is going to be on the next concert of the Early Music Ensembles of K-State. And we have their director and the director of the Early Music program with us, David Simmons Wood. Hello, David.
Hello again.
When is this concert?
Our concert's coming up on Monday, April the 18th. It's at 7:30 p.m. in All Faiths Chapel, which is right next door to McCain Auditorium on the campus of Kansas State University.
You teach a lot of things at K-State. You're a very talented gentleman. I just had the greatest chuckle though when we were talking about the things you teach, the juxtaposition of you teaching early Renaissance music, but you also teach the history of rock and roll.
Yes, we have many sections of that class here, and I teach one of them here. And I really enjoy it. I think it's a great way to introduce a lot of times non-musicians to what music history can mean by
Completely.
approaching this last 80 years or so as an example of how we can look back at history and how history can inform us about today. And it also really helps people connect the music that they enjoy to its predecessors and that kind of thing. How do artists like Taylor Swift relate to artists from the 70s and 60s and even the 50s? And I think it's a wonderful course, and I have a lot of fun with it, and I get to play a lot of my favorite music.
Is it a course only for music majors or can anyone take it?
No, anyone can take it. It's predominantly non-majors, I would say,
Hmm.
but we do have majors who take it. We have one large in-person section. I teach one of the online sections, and we'll be teaching a special section for first-year students in the fall. But we have many hundreds of students who take that class every semester. So it's our probably our most popular offering within the music program in terms of the
Oh,
number of students who take it across the university.
that must feel good. Doesn't that feel good?
Well, I would tip my hat to Dr. Steve Maxwell, who is the originator, who teaches our gigantic in-person section of it. But it is wonderful, and it's a really great way. And I think to get involved with other students throughout the university within music, and they have access to it as an elective. And it's the course has been built over many years, and we're just now seeing the fruits of all the work of those other folks who've been teaching it for so long.
Do you have professional or hobbyist musical groups that you're a part of outside of school, you personally?
At the current time, I don't, because my work with the university and my work with Early Music America as the programs director keeps me very busy. But oftentimes, and is the way with a lot of early music programs throughout the world, honestly, a lot of times faculty members are greatly involved in the performing, and so I get to do a lot of performing with my ensemble. So I'll be playing some solo recorder variations, and I'll be doing some singing with the group on this upcoming concert. So I kind of get the performance side out most of the time by being involved with these ensembles.
K-State has a very large music program and successful. I mean, obviously, State University-sized music program. I know several people who have graduated from K-State and gone on to be music educators and performers. Your student body, the people that, walk through your doors every day, would you say most of them are in school as music majors with the intention to teach?
I would say that's a great strength of our program here. We have a wonderful music education faculty, and we have a great partnership with the College of Education here as well. So a lot of our students do go the education route, but a number of them will choose performance as a focus. But I think the idea of music education sort of pervades a lot of what we do, even for those who are involved in the performance side, because we recognize that as musicians, most of us will do some kind of teaching, whether that's it's in our own rock band
Right.
ourselves or doing private lessons or something else. And so so that is a very prominent part of our program here.
Yes, I think that's such a good topic too. The topic of if you want your life to be in music, if you want to be surrounded by music always, you can't always put your eggs in one basket, and success looks differently as time goes on. Somebody who
Mhm.
once thought they would be a performer, gets 5, 6 years after college on down the way, and they, suddenly you're like, well, wait a minute, what do I really need? Really, I just want to be in music for my life.
Mhm.
And so it's always smart to get that ed major, get that business major.
Well, and as musicians, we're teaching each other constantly, and so the idea to how to communicate and how to best get across the ways that you're going to perform music together is a form of teaching in itself. And so having that as a skill, my undergraduate's not is a performance degree. I don't have an education degree, but but I'm the child of two music educators, and I've always very much valued it and tried to learn as much from my colleagues as possible, and
Yeah.
to improve my own teaching, and it makes me a better musician, I think.
I have 3 college degrees in music, none of them music education. And there's a joke in my family that for as long as I was in college, I could be a neurosurgeon. Why aren't I a lawyer?
Right,
Uh, all you can do is laugh. I wouldn't have it any
right.
other way. How lucky are we to be surrounded by music? David Simmons
Yes.
Wood, thank you so much for being here. And I hope you have a really wonderful upcoming concert. And, this was a really informative discussion. I loved having you on talking all about early music. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you.